Hello and welcome to our online celebration of this year's BBC Gardeners World Live on what would have been the first day of the show, along with BBC Good Food Show Summer. Now, we may not all be together this year in person, but through our website and our social media, you can join our celebration to enjoy a real flavour of the show, with the presenters, the designers and the exhibitors all coming together to inspire and help you become a better gardener. So to headline the celebration, I'm delighted to welcome Gardeners World lead presenter Monty Don, direct from Longmeadow. Monty, hi, and welcome to the online celebrations. But of course, today you're inside. We don't normally see that view, but that's probably a regular view for you. So tell us, how's life for you during lockdown? How's it been?
Well, it really has hardly changed at all. Lockdown, I have to say, in practical terms, has hardly affected me in any way at all. It's professionally, I mean, obviously haven't been able to do the shows. I'm supposed to have done, 3 weeks filming in Europe. That's gone by the wayside. And the way that we film Gardeners World has changed beyond all imagination. But actually, I'm still filming 2 days a week doing the program, and I've still been spending the majority of my working life right where you see me here. I've finished one book at Christmas time. I'm just coming to the end of another book, and I'll be starting another one in a couple of weeks' time, as well as writing articles for you and for other people, and so on and so forth.
Absolutely. The world of the writer is a sort of very enclosed one, and actually, as lockdown almost plays to that.
Yeah, I mean, that in practical terms, I have left this garden, other than taking the dogs for a walk in the fields, 4 times since the beginning of March. And that is all. And 3 of those journeys were very, very local. And one of them, I went to London and back and was in London for 30 minutes and did 8 hours driving. But that's it. That's absolutely been it. And that London trip was just a couple of days ago. So by most people's standards, I've been completely enclosed and trapped. By my own standards, I've hardly noticed.
But what an amazing place to be trapped. But now also you mentioned, and I know, and I've heard all about the filming, but tell everybody how the filming has changed so much, because filming is by its nature a collaborative, a team sport almost.
Yeah. Well, normally, as I'm sure most people know, on a Gardeners World filming day, the crew, which consists of about, it varies, but it's a core of about 6 people, can go up to 9. We can do it for less. We've got to have cameramen, sound recorders, runner. We have director, very often a producer, sometimes 2 runners. Turn up at 7:30 in the morning. There is a dedicated room or with a sort of kitchen and loo and things here, outbuilding. They get sorted out, and then we film solidly for 10 hours. They go and stay in a hotel, and it all repeats the next day. And we do 2 days solid filming for my part of Gardeners World. And it's completely a team effort from everybody, from runner, sound recorders will pitch in. I'll do a piece of camera, and people say, well, I don't know what that meant. What do you mean by that? And, it sounded good, but, or someone was, it's very much a jigsaw, and we are all just at component parts, and hopefully the picture comes together along with the editors, who are equally as important, but we don't see them, and the producers who prepare it, and the researchers, all that. We put it together, and between us all, we make a product. Since lockdown, literally for the first couple of weeks, it was just Sarah and I filming with a little camera and talking via Zoom to a director. And then the BBC installed literally miles of cabling around the garden. And we have a big container where we park our cars. So now we have nowhere to park the cars. And every week, a very small team will come and put up fixed cameras using the cabling. And I have to stay in the house while they're there. So there's no contact at all. There's no risk of passing disease. And then I have a walkie-talkie. They can hear my microphone. And when they're ready, the cameras are in place. I then go out to the camera and will do my bit. And when they need to move cameras, I go back indoors, and so it's changed. So I never have any contact with the crew. And this is not our normal crew. These are people, I don't know them. I have no contact with them. It's it's like writing for a magazine that you never meet the people you write for. So when people see me on television, I am entirely alone in the garden. There is no one else there. And I'm talking to robot cameras fixed up and attached by wires, and it's controlled rather like, it's remote control, someone looking at a screen and talking to me through a screen. I can't see them, but they can see me.
It's Big Brother technology, isn't it?
It absolutely is. It absolutely is. And I have to say that on one level, it's working incredibly well. And I'm sure you're aware our figures are through the roof. We have nearly 4 million viewers. We are the highest recorded program on BBC Two, and some nights the whole of television. And all the feedback we get is people are loving it. In terms of doing it, it gets stranger and stranger the more we do it, because I really miss my team. I miss the feedback. I miss the sense of collaboration. It still is a collaborative effect. We still do have, but everyone's working from home. So all the editors are working from home, the producers, the researchers. We have Zoom meetings, as I'm sure we all do now, but we are never in the same space.
Yeah, it's just incredible, and well, actually, and that's one reason why we're talking today is obviously it should have been day one of BBC Gardeners World Live, the show, the massive coming together. As you mentioned, you've not been to a lot of shows this year. You normally do more than most.
I haven't been to any shows.
Incredible, and they're all such a shame. They're all sort of in a real live sense, they're all gone. But what are you going to miss about the show? It's a very special show, Gardeners World Live. Well,
Gardeners World Live, there are two things that make it stand out. There is a real sense that it belongs to the visitors. All the other shows, for better or worse, you feel they belong either to the RHS, which they do. I mean, they really do belong to the RHS, or if they're put on by other people, and you go almost as a guest, as an invitee, and your ticket is rather like going to a garden party or going to an event where you are invited in, or even a football match or a concert. Whereas what you feel about Gardeners World is that somehow, in a sort of amorphous way, tens of thousands of people have decided to put on a show, and this is the result. And they've all got a stake in it. It's almost as though they're all shareholders, and this is the result of the combined communal effort. Now, I know that's not entirely the case, and it's a bit of a slur on the amazing work put on by the people who organise it. But it's a great credit to the organisers that they make everybody feel that. It feels like a people show. It's not the most beautiful location. Nobody would think that. But somehow that is overridden by the atmosphere, which is very good.
Yeah, I mean, I think wherever you are, you're immersed, aren't you, in colour. The gardens come to life, and they all feel very different, and they feel very much like the show. And it is the very purpose of it, is the show coming alive. But of course, as we've said, we can't all be there today, so it's all happening online. And this online celebration, obviously, is the sort of launch of a weekend of activity. But I mean, one of the outcomes of the show season disappearing is that I know there are more Gardeners World programs. There's more hours of television. We're sort of getting our fix as a community through TV.
But I think what has happened for the first time certainly in my lifetime, and probably, dare one say it, in history, is you have an entire nation which withdrawing to their homes. And they got in spring, in one of the most beautiful springs that any of us can ever remember. Thank goodness the weather was not like it is today. And so that even if you didn't have a garden, you had a sky, you had streets, you're allowed to walk out once a day, and that people had a chance to be aware of their gardens in a way that they haven't been perhaps before, unless you're retired or for some reason at home and have time. Because, if you have small children, you're at home, you do not have time to relish the garden. for the first time, people have had a chance to take stock of their gardens, of themselves, of their relationship with the outside, and I think increasingly importantly, their wildlife. Not necessarily the rare or dramatic wildlife, but just the blackbird singing or the little robin that comes and perches, as you have your cup of tea and wants a piece of biscuit or whatever. And I think that the magic of that many of us have known and enjoyed, has been more widely shared than ever before. And that's both a wonderful thing and has been a godsend, because it's almost been like, if I imagine like a sort of fungus working underground, it's tied us together and in some way healed us of something we probably didn't know we needed healing from.
Yes, I mean, I've seen the audience feedback about the programme, just saying it's the mental release in the week. It's that literal breath.
We all know that, I mean, even and I'm a news junkie, I read 4 newspapers every day and I listen to radio and I watch telly and everything. There are times I think, I really don't want to hear any more about this. I really, really do not. There are only so many times we can go round and round this circle. And you want relief. Mm. And I think that's important. And, although something like 85% of all British people have gardens, that means about 8 million people don't. And a lot of those that do have gardens have very small gardens. There's a limit to the possibilities within them. And I think that televising gardens, writing about them, coming to shows, is a way of enlarging, expanding your own experience. Even if you've got a big garden like I have, you always want more. You always want something else. You want to see something different. You want to go and visit other things. And I think we all share that.
Yes, I think by its nature, so many of us are very nosy people and love to see. That's why we come see you on a Friday.
Yourself, Lucy.
Well, we all want to know what you're up to on a Friday night. But I think what I've loved, and I know you've been very much a part of it, are the viewers' videos that are now pouring in to the programme. And what a genius idea that was. But
it has become absolutely central, and as long as I'm around, they will stay. They are absolutely not going anywhere. We are going to keep those viewers. There are 2 things I've noticed about them. Is one, they've changed. They have gone from being slightly tentative home movies, the sort of thing you show the sort of thing we send to each other. I mean, for instance, I've seen my grandson from a distance once since the end of February. But every day, I get pictures and little films of him. And that's how the home movies started, the sort of thing we send each other. They've become much more professional. I don't know if you've noticed, but the standard has become really high.
Yeah.
And people are making a real effort and doing very high quality stuff. That you start to think, boy, if you can do that on an iPhone, I'm going to watch my job. So that's the first thing I noticed. Yeah. The second thing is the diversity of gardens, of people. We're getting them from all over the world. We are seeing fantastic stuff that we didn't know was out there. Because don't forget, Gardeners World, we have a team of researchers. And at any one time, at least one of them is actively looking for gardens to film. Mm-hmm. We have something like 33 programs a year. We put out 5 films normally for each one of them. So it's 150 films we have to make a year. Even with all our presenters, etc., at least 100 have to be generated from outside. So if you say to people, go and find me 100 really interesting places to film, that's quite a task.
Yeah.
And they're coming in. They're pouring in by the thousand. You suddenly realize, yes, we are a very creative, very inventive, very resourceful people. And we're doing fantastic stuff in our back gardens.
Yeah, and it's amazing. And what's a real sort of joy coming through it, actually, are the families and the young kids who are deeply engaged, but loving it. I've got their fingers in the soil. I mean, I don't know how much that surprised everybody from the production team, but it was a joy. It is a joy to see.
It doesn't. I don't think it surprised us, because we all know that actually children from the age of about 3 to 10 are very low-hanging fruit when it comes to gardens. They love them. They love mucking about. When they're very little, they love the dirt and the mud and the playing around. And as they get bigger, the magic of a seed of any kind growing, or something they can eat or whatever. The really tricky period is about 11 to 18, 20, maybe even 25. Teenagers, basically, and young, very young people. And those of us, like myself, who gardened at that age, were considered, geeks, we really were not normal. So it's always nice to see that sort of age group coming through. That is surprising. But no, I've always known that families garden together. It's just nice to see it. It's very hard to film children because they're either at school or they get self-conscious in front of a camera. Whereas when it's their parents or their brothers or sisters doing it, then, and we've had, I can't tell you how moving and sort of enlightening a lot of the films we've had of, the real nub of what life is about. The thing that actually we all share, we all know, the real core of existence is right there in these little films. It's fantastic.
Isn't it? Yes, it's bonding, it's feeding, it's just all family life close together. In fact, there are lovely selection of the videos on the Gardeners World Live website, so people can watch them.
Oh, that's good.
And I think what's coming through as well, and you must be getting the feedback as we are, is how much people are drawn to growing their own food. Yeah. And that's seen a massive upsurge, and whether it's from young kids then going on to eat that, or families feeding themselves. But you must feel, at last,
Well, I have been banging on about this for a long time.
Haven't you? It's been your passion, hasn't it, Bernard?
Yeah, it's something that I suppose is really at the centre of my gardening. It's not the only thing I'm interested in, but yes, I literally have, since I've been a small child, I've always grown fruit and vegetables and herbs, and will always do so. And we always cook and eat from the garden as much as possible. And the fact that more and more people are doing it is just fabulous. And may it continue to happen. Some of that's been practical. I don't know about you, but we had trouble getting some supplies, certainly back in March and early April. Things were rationed. For instance, we at Longmeadow haven't had any chickens for about 3 years, but we couldn't buy enough eggs. So we did manage to get some chickens. So we've gone back to keeping chickens, and that was entirely provoked by lockdown. Wonderful film that's coming out next week is some sisters who had 7 tortoises, or have 7 tortoises, couldn't get enough lettuce to feed them, so grew some. And so you go. Long may that last. And I think that what I hope people will discover, it's not just the sort of having access to food, it's the deep reward of growing something, looking after it, eating it, and critically sharing it, even if it's just with one other person, is what food is all about. It's not just satisfying hunger or taste like that. The long, slow process makes the meal, that final moment, so much more rewarding. And I think, people aren't stupid, they understand that, they get that.
Yeah, and the flavour that comes from homegrown.
Yeah, and the flavour, the goodness, and one of the things that I've always been sort of passionate to the point of obsessive about is organic and not using sprays and not using chemicals and poisons, and being responsible for the effects of these things rather than the sort of knee-jerk hitting a symptom with a sledgehammer. And then, it doesn't matter if we do other things. And thank goodness a generation is growing up who are now in their 20s and 30s who are saying, actually, this is our world. This is our world that we've got to look after. And it's no good just using poison A to solve problem B, because C, D, E, F, G, H, and all the rest of the alphabet is going to hit us. It's going to tumble down on top of us. And we have to solve this problem. And my generation and my parents' generation just were blithe of that, just frankly irresponsible. And so it's great that that's being addressed. It's never too late. Never too late to try and sort these things out.
And of course, the fantastic outcome is, amongst other things, people discovering the joy of growing their own and eating. So tell us, what are you eating from the garden right now? What's
Well,
good?
obviously lots of lettuce. I eat lettuce twice a day. The chickens are eating lettuce. Everybody we ever come across are eating lettuce. And they've grown incredibly well. Broad beans. In fact, I've just pulled up the first batch of broad beans. I finished. We're just about to start our first peas. We have been eating parsley. The basil is very good this year. We are harvesting, let me think, we haven't got any potatoes yet. It's a bit early for that. We have, of course, my mind has now gone blank.
That's quite a lot already.
Yeah, I mean, we've still got lots of herbs. Herbs have been very good. So we've been making our own pesto. We've been... and I've been planting an awful lot. We've got radicchio just coming through. Chard's been exceptionally good. And we eat a lot of pasta. And Sarah is celiac, so we have gluten-free pasta.
Yep.
But we've got very used to that. So either brown rice or buckwheat pasta, which is very good. So we make sauces out of chard and tomatoes and all kinds of things.
Sounds delicious. Sounds delicious. Well, I know we've got a few questions from the audience, but before we go on to that, I can't really leave, talking of this summer without touching on Nigel and thinking back to, obviously such a key part of our program experience, and he lived every scene with you and frankly stole them all as well. The reaction from the audience when you announced the really sad news was, I mean, you must have been amazed. It wasn't just UK.
I was very moved, but not amazed, actually.
No, okay, yeah.
Because, and we're still, by the way, every day getting dozens of letters. Dozens. And cards and paintings and just from all over the world. And they're coming through. I wasn't surprised because certainly in the last few years, wherever I went, people would say, "Oh, where's Nigel? Why haven't you brought Nigel?" I mean, I remember, I remember the 3 times that really, really struck me was one, getting on a plane in Midwest America. And the guy took my boarding pass as I got on and said, "Hey, where's your dog? Haven't you got that?" And you just think, "Nigel, you've managed to get ahead of me here." Once I had to go to Buckingham Palace and the policeman with his machine gun said, "All right, sir, but it'd better if you brought your dog." and then in Japan, in Tokyo, crossing the road, a couple saying, "Hey, where's Nigel?"
No way.
So that didn't surprise me. I think I was very moved by people's response, and he touched something that was special and can't be replicated. And I say, in terms of actual filming, God, do we notice the lack of Nigel? Because you can't get Nellie or Patty to lie still or do what they're supposed to do. He was a one-off. He really was a one-off. And we miss, obviously as a family, I think that's the other thing, is he was our family dog. He was not a film dog. On filming days he came out, but for the rest of the time he was just with us. Normally he would be lying there next to me, and we miss his great hairy presence very much indeed. But I have to say that it was a long and good life, and there's a real sense of that was a really good episode in our lives, to share it with Nigel and to share that with so many people, and to have that kind of public recognition. Then the only real proper response is one of celebration, and that's the way I feel about it. I feel, gosh, that was good. Thank you, Nigel.
Yeah, a good life well lived.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. It was.
You must tell us what happened to all the tennis balls.
Well, they're all buried. They're all buried with him. We buried 50 with him in his grave.
Oh.
And so in 500 years, someone will excavate it. And this strange ritual, bones and these remnants of what were these objects, these magical objects.
Oh, God rest him. He's got a lovely resting face.
Yeah.
But that was one of the many questions actually that we had. So we've got in the little time we've got left, I've got a few questions that the audience has been putting. Of course, we had the flood of questions, so been hard to whittle them through. Great questions from all the audience, but I thought there's a few here that I'm going to put to you. But the first one, I guess, is a really broad picture from Brandon's asking the question, what advice would you give young people looking to get into horticulture? And clearly there are going to be more people now interested in it.
Well, I think it's very difficult because it's not going to suddenly get easier. It's not a very well-paid profession, and it's hard to get on. First of all, it's a good idea to get some qualifications. So study. There's no short route to that. You just have to learn. And I think that everybody, all the younger people I know who either work for me or I've seen come through, have worked really hard and they've studied hard. So make it a private, personal mission to learn. Learn the names of plants, learn how they grow. Everything you don't know, find out. And if it's any comfort, I'm still doing that all the time. Every day, I am looking things up. If you don't know something, admit it and look it up, however you want to in this day and age. So become informed. Try and get on a course if you can. Obviously there are the different gradations, but if you can get some qualifications, because there's some very good ones, and be prepared to start at the bottom. And I always say to people who want to garden, if you're not prepared to sweep or rake leaves in the rain all day long, or to weed a particularly awkward patch, then you're not a gardener. Just accept it's not going to be glamorous all the time, but everything is experience. And good gardening takes at least 20 years to really get under your belt. So see that as an enjoyable journey, not as a dreadful sort of apprenticeship you've got to go through to arrive somewhere that is fantastic. From day one, it's part of a really good way to live, but it's got to be a personal passion, I think.
I think that's the key, isn't it? Yeah. But you touched earlier on those households that don't have access to a garden. And a great question from Sheila. What about those households that have no access to green space? What should we be doing about that, particularly in the light of everything going on right now?
Well, I mean, there are a number of things. One, as we all know, that the growth of houseplants has become vast. So you can grow something. You really will, even if you've just got a little bedsit. I mean, my children lived in London in single rooms and shared houses and all the rest of it. And they have plants on their windowsill, and they have plants on their floor, and plants in the bathroom, they share bathroom and in the loo and kitchen and so on and so forth. So you can grow something. And the experience of growing anything, be it a fern or a rubber plant or whatever it might be, is gardening. It's all part of the same process. And I would also say is notice and value your public spaces, streets. What trees are there in streets? What parks, how they go. Any planted areas, they are public, they are yours. They are there to be enjoyed. They're not sort of wallpaper. They're living and breathing. And ideally, if you possibly can, get an allotment. I mean, for many places, there's terrible long waiting lists. But people are now sharing, up to 10 people are sharing one allotment. And if if you're students or you're a group of friends or whatever, if that's possible, and I do realize that's a big if, then take it. Take the opportunity. Don't be scared. Do that. But otherwise, use your windowsills, use your floors, buy some plants. And if you don't know how to grow them, well, find out. Just find out and give it a go. And things die, you replace them, and you learn by that. Yeah. But I do feel that gardens are important and that we should be factoring them into our building plans if we possibly can. But of course, house builders want to maximize the plots they can get in and so on and so forth. It's complicated.
Isn't it? I mean, one thing that's really come through from all the questions is how much people are enjoying growing fruit. Lots of questions about fruit. I've just sort of picked one out from Nahid, who's asking, my cherry tree looks healthy but bears no fruit. Any idea why? So
it depends what sort of cherry it is, of course. Not all cherries bear fruit.
It's an edible.
An ornamental cherry, it may well not have fruit, and especially if it's either infertile or doesn't have a pollinator. That is a typical question that one is asked, and you just don't have enough information to answer it, really. It depends what sort of cherry it is, where it is, how it's growing, and all that sort of thing. Cherries, by and large, need quite a lot of moisture, and often will drop their fruits when they're very small if they don't have enough moisture. They need a pollinator. And as I say, not all cherries are fertile.
Mm. And like many fruit at the moment, going through June drop and...
Yeah, I mean, if I would say that the apples here at Longmeadow, we have literally thousands of little fruitlets on the ground that have dropped. That's normal. That's completely normal and fine. It's because there were so many fruits formed after the amazing blossom we had in spring. The tree is just self-regulating and it can't cope with that. So it's shedding a good proportion of them. But what's left behind will be all the better for it.
Yeah, yeah. Again, another area, I think somebody, Linda's asked a question about her hostas. She's seen yours, and she's saying, my hostas are eaten alive every year. Yours clearly aren't. She's asking any eco-friendly suggestions. What's the secret to your hostas?
The secret to growing hostas that aren't eaten is to grow them strong. And that's not very helpful in itself. But what it means, if you grow hostas in a container, if you grow hostas in free draining soil, if you grow hostas anywhere that's just particularly dry, and certainly in where I used to garden in London 30 years ago or more, our soil was powdery and grey and dry. Hostas like damp, cool, if possible, not too hot, not blazing hot sunshine. They like damp soil, damp air, they do better in, and they like rich soil. The richer the better, really. And if they're growing strongly, they won't get eaten. Slugs and snails tend to go for plants that are stressed in any way. And you may not be able to see that stress, but there will be. Either the roots haven't got enough reach, or they're a bit dry, or maybe in some plants too wet, or whatever. And by reducing that stress is the best way to stop hosta attack. And my hostas don't get eaten because they're growing in rich Herefordshire loam. And it's as simple as that. And last year I did an experiment. I grew 2 hostas side by side, one in a pot, one in the soil. By September, the one in the pot was really getting eaten. Mm. The one next to it, exactly the same hosta, wasn't touched. This year, my hostas were frosted quite badly in May. Mm-hmm. And I bet you all the ones that were frosted will start to get attacked by slugs and snails sort of from August onwards. So it's not that mine are special, it's just that if you give them the right condition, the slug and snail will always go where the pickings are easiest, and they want, food that they've evolved to clean up decomposing tissue. Mm-hmm. They're fallen leaves and plants, and a hosta that is starting to feel stressed is lovely for them. They like that.
Yeah, and true for so many plants, really, in the end.
Yeah, it is. That's a plant, right? And that's why they eat young seedlings, because what the slug and snail can't tell is the difference between the very soft tissue of a seedling and decomposing tissue. So if you can get them through that initial phase and they start to grow quickly and stronger, they'll be left alone.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I'm going to ask you one last question from the audience, and a good one here from James. If you could go back in time and create Longmeadow all over again, what would you change? What would you do differently?
Practically everything. The difficult answer to that question is, it would assume that the person 25, 28 years ago now, would have my knowledge now. Whereas as I was then, I did it as I thought best. I think that I've learned over the last, let's call it 25 years, a whole new attitude to gardening from other people, which is to be much more sensitive to wildlife, much more open to a more naturalistic way of planting. Box blight has meant that I couldn't rely upon box as much as we did. by the end of the 1990s, sort of, well, actually by about 2010, this garden was really defined by very crisp box hedges everywhere. And that isn't feasible anymore. I would have, knowing what I know about Longmeadow, I would not have planted where it floods so much. I would not have planted so many big trees because, you know, that the saying is be careful what you wish for. Is you plant trees to break the wind. What's happened is now they've got big, is they are stopping the airflow and we're getting more fungal problems as a result. So I would have been a bit more circumspect about that. I would have planted a walnut tree, which I wish I'd done, and it's now getting a bit late because I missed that. But I don't regret anything, nothing at all. And also the other thing that people don't realize is I might change it. I might change it tomorrow. You know, gardens are a process. Longmeadow isn't finished. And I might turn around and say, okay, fine. Let's grub out the whole of the dual garden. Let's take out all the hedges. And I would feel completely relaxed about doing that. It's not a building that then would be sort of a kind of vandalism. But gardens are a living, moving, changing thing. And you're allowed to be part of that change and to change with it. Watch this space.
And we will. So yes, we'll be tuning in on Friday night and many Friday nights to see you. But maybe that walnut tree could still happen for your grandson.
It could for my grandson, yes. It won't be, I don't think I'll be around to see it big and strong, but I wish I'd done that 30 years ago.
Oh, well, just the one regret.
Yeah.
Monty, thank you so much for sharing the time with us, you know, as we look to, you know, and celebrate Gardener's World Live, a year where it's all online, but we're all still together. But we'll see you on Friday night. And
I hope we'll all be back and around next year. I'm sure we will. I'm sure we'll all sort of learn lots from this experience. And I can guarantee we'll still do Gardener's World. If I can crawl outside and just speak vaguely to some camera, we'll still do it. And it's, you know, I'm learning a lot from this experience, and I'm sure we all are.
Yeah. Okay, that sounds like the subject for another conversation.
Yes.
Okay, Monty, we'll let you go. Enjoy Longmeadow, and we'll see you again.
Thanks very much indeed. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye. So my thanks to Monty for joining us to launch this online celebration of BBC Gardener's World Live 2020. And there's plenty more to discover over the coming weekend on bbcgardenersworldlive.com and all of our social media platforms. So from some of the lovely viewer videos sent into the programme and expert tips from our growers to delicious recipes that you can use right now, it's all there. And most importantly, do put next year's dates into your diary as the show is back from the 17th to the 20th of June, 2021. Meanwhile, here, same time, same place tomorrow, you can catch a practical session from Adam Frost with David Hurrian to help you garden more sustainably. So we'll see you then. And thanks for watching.